Hello everyone, this is Take from bigheadtaco.com and welcome to BHD Studios. This is my first impressions of the brand new Sony A7C. Now before you say anything or comment down below, yes, Take does review cameras other than Fuji and Leica. Many of you know that I started off back in the early 90s with the Minolta A mount, which Sony eventually bought that part of the business from Minolta. And so the last Minolta A mount body that I had bought was the Konica Minolta 7D. And then when Sony took over, the first Sony body that I really liked was the A700, and this was a classic vintage DSLR, and here is the A7. So you see that that's number 7, that's kind of come from the old Minolta days. I think that this camera it's gotten to that point where it's the right size and has the right aesthetics. They've got the balance of everything right in this camera, so that's why I was interested. So thank you Sony USA, the team, the marketing team down in San Diego. I met most of them down at a Beers and Cameras event back in 2017. They sent this out to me, and they sent this lens here, the 20 f1.8. And I think this is a great balance for hybrid shooters, those that shoot both video as well as for stills, and especially for vlogging. I think this is it. And I do have the new Fujifilm XS10. These two cameras have a lot in common, and they are targeting the same market, but spec for spec, they're very similar. And I did shoot a separate video where I do compare these two, as well as a vlogging test. You can see right away, size and weight, they are very similar. But as I was saying, there's something special about this A7C. So we're gonna go over the top 8 features that I like about this brand new Sony A7C, and the top 5 things that I think that they can do to improve this camera. So let's start the video now. All right, feature number 1, the aesthetics. Sony their cameras have gotten better looking over the years. The first Next series, I thought they're functional like a toaster or a microwave, but they sure don't look very good compared to what Fujifilm was creating, and Leica and these other brands. Even the Olympus pen cameras look really sweet out of the gate. But over the years, Sony cameras have been looking nicer and nicer, especially now with the 3 series of the A7 cameras and the A9 as well. I think they look pretty good. And this is probably, I have an affection towards rangefinder styled cameras, but this is a hybrid because it has the left EVF in the top left corner like a rangefinder, a flat top. Everything is right hand centric other than the menu button, but it has a large grip, and that's really what makes it stand apart from Fujifilm that tends to be more traditional. So the X Pro 3 and the XE3, they tend to not have much of a grip, and even the XT series, not much of a grip. And so I think they've balanced the aesthetics really well. It looks really nice, and the ergonomics and the feeling in the hand is really nice. So that's the number 1 thing that I really love about the A7C. Number 2 is the size reduction. The reason why a lot of us went to Micro Four Thirds and APS-C was because full frame was just too large, especially before full frame mirrorless. The DSLRs were just way too huge, and so many of us gravitated towards the Fujis and the Olympus and the Panasonic because of that size weight balance. And so what Sony's done with this is that they've made this small enough now where it's basically the A6600 size and weight. In fact, I looked at the weight of the A7C, and it's 509 grams with battery and card, and the A6600 is 503 grams. So that's a 6-gram difference. So yes, they have made this as light and as small as their APS-C mirrorless camera body. So that's great. As well, Sony says that they have shrunk the size of their IBIS mech so that it will fit inside something like this. And number 3 is the IBIS. Having IBIS is great, especially if you are using, with the E-mount, you are using adapted lenses that don't have its own built-in image stabilization. And having a lens like the 20 f1.8, and it's an ultra-wide lens, you could shoot at really low handheld speeds. So for stills, this is fantastic. For video, it's improving, but it's great that a camera of this size that is full frame has IBIS. Number 4 is autofocus. If you haven't shot with the Sony in a while, their autofocus has always been a step above everybody else, and they just kind of kill it with this generation of autofocus. It's a mixture of phase and contrast detect, so it's on sensor. You're getting 693 phase detect and 425 contrast detect to a -4 EV. The autofocus just locks on. I love the AF on button where you just press that onto any object, and if you shift, it will stay locked on that, even if it's a stationary object, or if it's a person, it'll just lock onto them and it will just follow them as long as they are in frame. And so I did vlogging tests with this mostly because I think that's kind of who they're trying to appeal to, and this focus was just spot on and just beautiful, and in a way I wouldn't even need the articulating screen because I trust the autofocus so much that I just like put everything in auto and just let it do its thing. So autofocus, number 4. Number 5 is the body design. Not so much the aesthetics, but the functional part of it. It is a weather sealed body, which is great. I love this. It seems weird, but their ports, especially if you do shoot video and you're constantly plugging in microphones and you're constantly plugging in HDMI out to put to a monitor or an external recorder, you want really nice cable management, and I think they've hit a home run, and I think every camera manufacturer should learn from Sony on the A7C. The top here has the microphone input, and it does not get in the way of the articulating screen. No matter how you twist it, that microphone is way up top, so it's out of the way. And then you have the card slot, which is on the side and not on the bottom, which is very common on prosumer cameras. They put the battery and the memory card next to each other. I don't want to put memory and power next to each other. So having it on the side is great. And then the bottom is actually a flip down door, and that's where you have your headphone jack. So it's not next to the microphone jack, which is better. It's down at the bottom. If you don't need it, don't use it. Also has the micro HDMI as well as the USB-C. So the cable management on this is just awesome, and I wish every camera was this good. And their doors, not that weird rubber. I mean, they are kind of rubbery, but they're really rigid, and they're not that weird floppy, flippy thing that we're seeing on more and more cameras. Please stop with the floppy, flippy doors. And finally, I like that dedicated video button, which is something that Fujifilm started off doing, and I think a lot of photographers who didn't shoot video in the Fujifilm ecosystem complained and said get rid of it, and they did. And Sony has had it, and that's something that my brother who shoots, actually two of my brothers shoot Sony, they miss that about when they shoot with my Fujifilm cameras that I loan sometimes, that they're like, why isn't there a dedicated video button? So no matter what shooting mode you're in, if you want to shoot video, you just press it and video starts. And it being red and sort of in the front, I think the 6600 series, a lot of the older Sonys, the button was in the back, and it's hard to, you have to kind of guess where it is. This is, you know where it is. It gives you a little chime when the video starts, and it gives you a chime when the video stops. And so that's a great position for that. So ergonomics and body design, everything is very functional. Number 6, and for many this is the number 1 reason, is this fully articulating screen. Having it on a full frame body, a rangefinder style that's small and compact, large grip, but as well as having this articulating screen, I think the combination of all that, I think this is great again for vloggers as well as those doing talking head. If you are doing stuff on your own in your studio, you're doing talking head, you're doing vlogging, you're also doing product photography straight down, you get way more angles that you can work. If you're doing low angle, high angle stuff, you pretty much, there's almost no angle you can't use this on. Yeah, even like this, you can shoot vertical video like this. So having a fully articulating screen for a camera like this, I could see why an A7 III doesn't have it, just like my Fujifilm X-H1. I don't want a fully articulating screen on a camera like that, but on a camera like this, it's a welcome addition, and it actually makes this camera way more functional and way more attractive to video creators, content creators, as well as hybrid shooters. Number 7. Even though this body is compact and it has IBIS and it has all these features, they were able to fit a full-size battery in here. Of course, they went this way, right? So they utilized the shape of the grip to put the battery, but it's their full Z series batteries that are on their larger, more professional bodies, and they're able to squeeze this into this camera body. And so it's 2280 milliamp hours, I think, 85 grams, which is the reason why this body is kind of heavy, because of the battery. With that, you're getting 740 shots on one of these batteries. And so just carrying one extra spare is fantastic. Finally, number 8, if you are a video shooter, there is no time limit on video. You could just keep on going. Most cameras put a 30-minute time limit. This has no time limit. And as well, heat management, it seems like Sony has been able to figure out that secret sauce, because when you go smaller, you have problems with heat. And how do you get rid of that heat, right? So the smaller it is, less heat sinks, it gets hot. Video, you gotta put a limit. This one here has no limit, and you know, I didn't do a video test, but a lot of the YouTubers did, and it was going on for hours, basically until you run out of memory or you run out of battery power. But of course, you can power it with a USB-C cable, and I guess technically go on for until you get the overheat signal. But from it, what it seems like, that people are struggling to make this camera overheat. So unlimited video time limit, as well as heat management. Taking in all those 8 things that I love about this camera, this is what makes this Sony the best Sony mirrorless camera, meant specifically for YouTubers, content creators, TikTokers, vertical video creators, those that are more into shooting video with stills, because this is still the same sensor and processor that's in the Sony A7 III, and so you will get amazing photographs out of this. I didn't have much of a chance to shoot stills with this, but the ones that I did, it is just beautiful. And it is 24 megapixel, which is, to me, I find it is the sweet spot both for APS-C as well as for full frame. If this went to 36, I think that's still manageable, but 24 is still a really good place to be. So overall, those are the 8 reasons why I think this is a great camera from Sony. So let's talk about the 5 things Sony can do to improve the A7C. So number 1, it is, again, body design. Well, I thought you said the number 1 reason why you like it was the body design. I love the body design, but these are some of the things that I found that they can improve on. Number 1 is this tiny EVF. This small, tiny 0.39 inch EVF. I wear glasses, I also wear contacts, but it is not that great to look through. Now, to be honest, it's the same size that what you'll find on the XS10 on the Fujifilm, as well as on the X-T30. This is not the most comfortable, but you also understand that there's very little space. The EVF is shoved to the top left corner. The top is smooth, so you can't really go, at least I wouldn't aesthetically go above this line, and you can't go below this line, because that's exactly where the LCD goes. So I understand the size of it, and it's just kind of one of the compromises that Sony had to make, but I had to mention it. As well, there is no joystick on here. And again, it's the same problem of where do you put the joystick? This is so small here. I think maybe moving that FN button and putting it up in this top right corner here would be great. And as well as the positioning of the menu button. That's one of the buttons you go into very often, and a lot of companies put that button in the middle of the D-pad as the menu button, but they decided to put it right dead smack up here. And when you're shooting and you're trying to, everything is sort of thumb-centric when it comes to controls, and there's that menu that's way over in the middle there. And so I think that's a really odd spot to put the menu. I wish that they could put the joystick where the FN button is, move the FN button here, and I don't know where they would put the menu button, but I don't like where it is there. Number 2 is the single card slot. I think Sony did this on purpose. They could fit a second card slot in there. If you look at the design of the A7 III, it's like basically the bottom half of an A7 III minus that little EVF hump. And so they could have easily put one in here. I think it was an attempt to sort of not make it too good so that people won't buy the other camera bodies, but I think they could have put 2. Number 3 is its video capabilities. Again, they've purposely bottlenecked the video features on this. I don't know if it's because of the size and weight and this ability to be able to reduce heat, or if it's just, again, they don't want you to buy this, they want you to upgrade to the A7S Mark III, which is almost twice the price of this, but this tops out at 4K 30, this does 420 8-bit internally as well as externally. It doesn't go to 10-bit, and in 1080p it does go up to 120 but not up to 240. So they did cripple the video on this. So if you are a Sony shooter and you're looking for this as a B cam, I think it's okay. For someone like me who is a YouTuber, 4K 30, 4K 24, that's kind of what I shoot at anyways. Number 4 is something that everyone complains about, is their menu system. I forgot how confusing it can be. Now there's things about it I do like. They have the folders, and if you stay up at the top of the folders and you scroll across, you can just bypass scrolling through everything. And then you go back down and then you can scroll within that, right? So the design of it in itself isn't horrible, but it's just you don't know where things are. It's just you have to figure that out. And they do have that FN button where you can quickly jump into your major settings. And so once you get used to it, you kind of know where it is, and you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? The menu system is fine. It is fine if you get used to it, but if you're coming from Canon, you're coming from Ricoh, you're coming from Fujifilm, this is very convoluted. And this is the same menu system that's in the A7 III. The A7S Mark III has been improved, and many had hoped that this would inherit that. It did not. And maybe in a firmware update, which I know Sony's not famous for doing that, but if they did that, I think that would make a huge difference. And the number 5 is more of a wish list thing, which is a tally light. Now, for those of you that don't know what a tally light is, it's when the camera blinks or it's a solid light letting you know that the video is recording. Now, Fujifilm, I think since the X-H1, every camera has it, and the new XS10 has it. When you hit record, right away you know that you're recording. If the battery dies, if the memory card is full, or even if there's just some kind of an error, you know right away that the video is stopped. Now, of course, you do have the fully articulating screen, so you can kind of look over, but even the record on Sony, it's hard to tell that you're recording until you kind of stare and you see that little record light. Is not that clear to me. So there is a little light here probably for autofocusing and self-timer. I think Sony can do it. If Fujifilm can do it, Sony can do it. In fact, I think that every camera manufacturer that allows you to do vlogging, and they call it a vlogging camera, should put a tally light in the front so that as you're recording, you know what's happening. So who is this camera for? Well, I think if you're already in the Sony ecosystem and you have like an RX 100 series camera and you're using it and you think it's time to upgrade, or you're in the A6000 series and you feel neglected and ignored by Sony because you're looking at your native lenses and there just really isn't a lot of options for you, I think this is probably the first A7 series that you can confidently move up to, and you will be comfortable with the size and weight and the functionality. Plus you have all those extra features like the fully articulating screen, like the full-size battery, like really good cable management, all those things, and you have that full frame. And now, if you notice, even in my pros, I didn't put full frame as one of the things that I love because there are advantages and disadvantages of 35mm or full frame. I'm not going to get into it in this video here, but when it comes to Sony, I think they do full frame really well, and I would confidently recommend this camera, and I think this is great for vlogging. So that's another thing. If you are wanting to buy a dedicated vlogging camera and what you have now doesn't have a fully articulating screen, and you are looking at this new Fujifilm XS10 and thinking, well, this is full frame, so this is why I'm going this way. There are pros and cons to full frame. For some people, they think bokeh is everything, shallow depth of field is everything. But if that is what you're looking for, then there's nothing in the Fujifilm ecosystem that will give you a 20 f1.8 equivalent in terms of shallow depth of field. But if you are in Fujifilm and you're thinking of moving up to full frame and you are a hybrid shooter, I think this is a camera that you can look into. And so think carefully if you want to spend that extra dollars, right? Because this is $1,800 body only. They actually do have a kit where it includes the 20 f1.8, or maybe it's just B&H, but I'll put the link down below where it puts these two together, and the price is just over $2,500 US. And you also have to think about ecosystem, your access to lenses. Sony E-mount has a lot of third-party lens support. Sigma is the one brand I think a lot of professionals are looking for because of their art series lenses. So overall, would a Fujifilm shooter like me buy a camera like this? Well, it really depends, but there are a lot of things I do like about it. They have shrunken the size of this to the point where it is the same size and weight as a APS-C or a Micro Four Thirds camera. So that's my first thoughts on the Sony A7C. It is an awesome camera, a great compact full frame with IBIS and fully articulating screen. Okay size EVF, but I understand why they have it. But overall, I think if you bought this, knowing its limitations and knowing who it's targeting, you'll be really happy with a camera like this. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, go see Gerald Undone or somebody else, because like I said, I don't know. My last Sony camera was an A700. Things have changed. And so if you have any like deep dive questions, because I'm returning this to Sony tomorrow, so I'm not gonna be able to answer your questions. And you're watching this because you're probably a Fujifilm Leica shooter wondering, what's so great about the Sonys? Well, I just told you what I like about this camera. So thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon, and happy shooting.